So we're going to talk about childbirth. It's a really interesting topic, but one of the things that women have a lot of questions about, and I for one, for example, with my first child, I actually didn't really do any research about cesareans or any sort of non-natural birth options, because in my mind I was always going to have a natural birth. And of course, God didn't have that plan for me, and I ended up having an emergency cesarean and really had no idea what was going on. So one of the important things is probably for us to learn from the experts what it is that we need to know whilst we're pregnant and before we enter childbirth. So here we are with our experts, and we're going to talk to Gillian and Hayley about what you need to know. Top 3 things, ladies.
Ooh.
What are the things mothers should consider whilst they're preparing to give birth?
So Hayley and I are taking a deep breath. It was very hard to break it down to 3 things. But yes, there are definitely some very important things that mothers should be aware of. I mean, like you said, the knowledge is so important. Knowing the unexpected and unknown factors of birthing. Not everyone goes on the same journey. Everyone is an individual. Everyone has a very unique experience. So what we do at Birth HQ is we really, and midwives, we really focus on empowering mums with a lot of evidence-based knowledge. So we encourage that by doing classes. So that is one of the things that we really think is important, number one thing for parents to know when they're going through it.
Yeah. Because education is just so empowering, and it gives families the choice and the voice. Like you said, like birth is unforeseen and unpredictable. Like you don't know how your journey is going to be. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that we are very raw with our education. We tell families everything they need to know, every possible scenario. When plan of care does deviate, as you experienced. So it's so important, because what we've realised as midwives is that when families don't encounter the birth they were expecting, they're more prepared and their coping mechanisms are more enhanced when they have had the education. So that's what we're really focused on. So education, first and foremost, is probably the biggest. Absolutely. Is it number 1? To be prepared.
So we have to do our classes, ladies. Please.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, one of the other things that I found that's really important when families do come to classes is to have the right support network. So that is definitely a focus of number 2, without a doubt. So support, regardless of whether it's your partner, whether it's your grandmother, whether it's your mother, whether it's your best friend, just having someone that has your back. Someone that you can basically rely on and know that is going to be an advocate for you. As midwives, that's actually one of the main roles that we actually take on board when we meet people in birth suite and families. So we actually really do become the advocate, and we put the woman first, don't we?
And it's really important for families to really discuss their expectations of birth prior to having their baby, because quite often in the different stages of labour, different stages of birth, a woman can quite often lose her, she goes into that zone, and she does require the people around her to be a voice sometimes. So it's really important for them to be aware of her expectations and what she had planned. So really discuss.
I really find that's really interesting, because that really resonates with me. As a mum, and a new mum, your focus is your child. And with my first child, because I had an emergency cesarean, my focus was the health of my child. And I really wasn't focused at myself at all, because that wasn't but having everyone around me, especially my mother and my husband and my family, was incredibly helpful, because they took care of me so I could focus on my child and his health. So that really resonates with me, and I really do understand that. although took it for granted, but
Yeah,
I
definitely.
do understand
And
that.
the thing is that our number one and our number two actually go really well hand in hand. So we really encourage your partner, your family, whoever is your birth support, to actually come to the classes with you, because it's very important for them to be knowledgeable, empowered as well, to know those unexpected things that could happen, so they're able to make those decisions with you or support you when things do deviate, like Hayley was saying. So yes, we definitely incorporate 1 and 2 without a doubt. And things like, partners can do things like even just handing you a glass of water, reminding you to go to the toilet when, because a lot of mummies get into, like Hayley was saying, they get into this beautiful zone when and they forget to even do the simplest things like go to the toilet. They do. And we know as midwives that having a full bladder can actually slow the progression of baby descending into the pelvis. Because the bladder is full, it's actually reducing that diameter, the space that the baby can come out of the pelvis to be born. So the simplest thing, like reminding your partner to go to the toilet while she's birthing, is cute. And having partners or family go to classes, they learn this sort of knowledge.
Love that. I didn't know that at all. So I learned something really interesting today, even after 3 children. So would you have any other tips at all? Would there be something else that another third point that would be important?
There's so many. Probably the third one would be thinking about optimal fetal positioning.
Right.
So from around 35 weeks gestation, basically what the optimal fetal positioning is the way a mother positions herself can influence the way the baby positions itself in the womb. So, and that can actually impact labour. So if your baby's not in that correct position in utero, in the lead up to labour and during labour, it can prolong things, it can prolong labours, it can increase pain. So what we generally encourage from 35 weeks is mothers to adopt a lot of forward positioning. So tilting upright and tilting the pelvis forward.
Okay, so let's all try that. So what do we explain to mums how we do that?
Well, I've got a little
wonderful. So we've got a proper
This will be.
So this is the average woman size
Right.
pelvis. So basically it's just sitting down there as I'm sitting down. So basically what we want to encourage is mums to lean forward and encourage that pelvis to tilt forward a lot more.
Right.
So what we discourage from around 35 weeks is reclined positions.
Okay.
So if I was in this position, it encourages the pelvis to tilt backwards.
Right.
And it encourages bub to go in a posterior position, which means bub's back is on mum's back.
So the heaviest part of the baby is on the spine of the mum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that can cause a lot longer labour, a lot more painful labour, a lot more discomfort in the back.
Yes.
So what we want is bub to be in the anterior position,
Just like this.
so when bub's back is towards mum's tummy, and how you can encourage that is by really like tilting your pelvis forward.
Okay.
So leaning
Yes.
forward on a chair. So tilting the pelvis forward, you can lean over like a little footrest or a stool as you're cooking dinner of an evening, leaning over the kitchen bench. So it just really encourages bub to lean forward and get in that anterior position. So a lot of forward positioning.
Yeah.
That's a really important little tip.
Oh, it really
Yes.
is. And you can do that from your 30 weeks gestation onwards. We really encourage it to help this baby, engage into the pelvis in this optimal positioning.
Yeah, bub just fits a lot better. Even if you have a baby in a breech position,
Right.
if you have a lot of backache, like those normal pregnancy discomforts, the best position to be is leaning forward. So again, tilting that pelvis forward. If you're not leaning forward, you get in that position, and it just encourages that movement of the pelvis.
And it
So
alleviates the
it
pain.
alleviates
On that
pelvis.
spine.
So bum sort of falls forward and takes the pressure off the back. So any backache, backache would be, it's a really, really great position. So that's probably, and you can do it like on footballs, like any furniture in your house. It's a really great great position.
All fours.
And
Yeah.
that's generally the positions that we normally adopt in labour, is be upright, have gravity on your side, which is the best thing.
And as midwives, and also we teach this in our number one reminder, the classes once again, and we also teach this to our partners that support the birthing woman. So they know that if mums don't naturally, and generally, 99% of time, mum doesn't naturally find herself in those positions anyway during birth. But it's really good for the partners to know this during classes, so they can also be the reminder to mum. Mum, how about, we go to, go on all fours, change position, go to the toilet. Because when you're sitting on the toilet, how do we sit when we're on the toilet? I know we're going to talk about toilets, but we sit upright, So it's actually a really wonderful position to encourage optimal fetal positioning.
And if you've got a baby in a really good position, then it puts a lot in labour, it puts a lot more pressure on the cervix, encourages blood to descend into the pelvis a lot more, can help reduce the pain a woman feels in labour, and that discomfort, and can actually reduce labour time. So being upright and active, it has all of those benefits. So upright, gravity, have your hat on side.
Fascinating to me.
Yes.
Of course, I had my first 19 years ago, so it's a long time ago. But I don't remember the hospital ever explaining any of these things to me. In fact, I recall being on my back. And probably in the wrong position for birth.
Absolutely. And the thing is, when a lot of young mummies these days compare their birth to someone else, and this is where I'm going to do a 3.5. I have to add something else in. A lot of mums compare their birthing experience with someone else's birthing experience, and it may be your mother's birthing experience. And back then, if I compare myself to my mother, they actually birthed without a partner in the birth suite, on their back. And once again, they're two things of the three things that we said we need. She also didn't have the education back then. So the birthing experience is very different to what we encourage these days. And also, the thing is that we really need to ensure that mums are actually having their own individual journey, even if it's a sister you're comparing your birth to or your pregnancy to. You don't know what happens behind someone's closed door when they're in birth suite. Was that mum squatting? Was she lying on her back? Did she have a full bladder? All these things make a huge difference to how someone births their beautiful bubba. So don't
see on
compare.
Instagram a lot of ladies squatting.
Yes.
And this would fall within what you're teaching mums.
Optimal fetal positioning,
Yes.
definitely.
Squatting is one of the positions that actually does increase the diameter of the pelvis, so where the baby passes through the most. So, like you mentioned, like a lot of people still have that misconception that they will be on their backs, and they don't realise that it's basically where you want to be and if you're comfortable. And most pregnant and labouring women it's just a lot more comfortable being upright and active.
They're just naturally
Gravity on your side, like it just makes
Does
sense.
all the work for you.
Exactly. Whereas being on your back, the little tailbone actually doesn't move. So you actually working against gravity and pushing uphill. Whereas this little tailbone can actually move like a centimetre or so in labour.
Yes.
And you're upright. So it's absolutely. So there's so many benefits, and that's basically what we want families to know, is that labour, is your journey.
Yes.
You do have a choice. You have that voice, and you're able to be where you want to be. Listen to your body, trust your
But you need to know what the choices are.
Exactly. And this is why.
And this is why this is so enlightening for a lot of mums and for me, because a lot of us don't know what the choices are.
Yes.
And I think this is really helpful.
Definitely.
Tell us, so now we've had both.
Yes.
And we know from the social media space that a lot of mums are finding it challenging after having them.
Definitely.
We need to talk a little bit about postpartum care.
Right.
Because it's not really spoken about enough.
No.
We understand that mums are finding it challenging, but there aren't a lot of people talking about how to alleviate those challenges. So I saw a post from the lovely Zoe Marshall, and for those of you who know Zoe Marshall, you know she's very real about her discussions about parenting. And she asked the question about postpartum care and what are the sort of things that we can put into place to avoid postnatal depression.
Very similar to the knowledge and education that we spoke about. Having that is very empowering for your first journey as a parent. We find that a lot of families are so excited for the birth, the baby and the pregnancy, and they're so prepared for that. And once they've done their classes, yes, they're prepared to go into birth suite and have that beautiful baby. And then this baby's born and they're like, okay, what next? What happens? When mums are pregnant and when they're definitely after the baby's born, they have got the most hormones that they've ever had in their life running through their body. In all different directions, bouncing off each other. And it can be a journey that's not just about your physical recovery, about recovering with your beautiful body, but it's also a journey that mums will find is actually, you learn a lot about your emotional strength as well. So yes, a lot of mums, all about education has got to do with the awareness of what happens postnatally to the mind, body, and the soul.
Yeah.
So baby blues and postnatal depression is huge. It's really prevalent in our community.
So let's understand what it is.
Yeah.
So probably that's a good starting point because we all have blue days, but is it a day that we're just feeling a little bit low or a little bit tired? What really is it, and how do we better describe it from a medical perspective?
Yeah.
So baby blues is a very common thing that happens to about 80% of women, normally between day 3 and day 10 after having their baby. And it is just normally mums can get a little bit teary, a little bit overwhelmed. They're sleep deprived, like Gillian mentioned, the hormones are going crazy in their body. So it's just it's very normal and happens to, as I said, 80%. So most women, they can just have a teary day, an emotional day for a day or two. But the main thing is that they get over it. Okay, they don't require any treatment or anything like that, and it's very normal.
Yes.
Postnatal depression is very different though. It can occur at any time between 1 month and 12 months after having their baby, and normally affects about 1 in 7 women. So it's quite prevalent out there, and it's normally when they can start feeling, that they're not coping. It's
no
more
enjoyment.
And the teary days are prolonged. They don't get better. Generally with postnatal depression, it's normally a family member or the partner that picks up on it.
Yes.
Quite often before the
Yeah,
does.
definitely.
So it's really important, again, for families to be aware of it, know that it exists, because quite often mums may go into denial and be like, I'm fine, and it's someone else that picks up a change in behaviour. So it's just that change in behaviour that doesn't get better and that does require more treatment and support.
And in our educational classes and midwives classes all around the world, basically we really work on making people aware of the risk factors of postnatal depression and how normal birth baby blues is as well. So the amount of times I've gone into a postnatal room on the ward, and I've gone into the shower, the dad's looking after Bubby, and you've gone into the shower and the mum is in tears, floods of tears. You just want to cuddle her, and you have, we talk about, we support her, and we explain to her what she's actually got, what she's experiencing, which is hopefully baby blues. Because as soon as I hand her that towel, and as soon as she gets a glimpse of that baby across the other side of the room, the smile beams, and that is very common, and it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. That is basically what we experience with baby blues. The risk factors for postnatal depression is one of those things that you've either got a history of depression or anxiety prior to pregnancy, or even maybe while you were pregnant. So that is definitely something that you need to be aware of. So when we do antenatal classes, we actually address a lot of our education to the partners. Because, like Hayley was saying, sometimes mums are actually unaware that they're going through postnatal depression. So they will be going through and think everything's fine, baby's being fed, I'm dressed, the kids are off at school, and they don't quite realise it. So we actually say to them, we look them in the eye and we say, okay, when your partner comes up to you and says, honey, I think it's time we go and visit the GP because I don't feel like you are, have that smile of enjoying your pregnancy. We actually teach mums to say, okay, I trust what you're saying, let's go to the GP.
Okay.
And that is important. Knowing your resources and trusting the person that's telling you that something doesn't seem right.
So it's really important then to have someone around you that is a good support.
Oh, yes.
That you trust, so that when they come to you and say, we need to go and see the GP,
yes,
you step in and say, absolutely.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Is there something we could do to avoid postnatal depression? Is there something that some strategies that we can implement?
Definitely. Resources. Being aware that you may be at risk of postnatal depression is definitely going to help. But while you're pregnant, seeing a perinatal psychologist, social workers, you can see midwives as well. And there is so much support out in the community that people need to start being aware of it. And, the GPs are actually a really wonderful stop to start. You get your referral and then they actually have a postnatal depression referral onto psychologists and so forth to help you. So it's about knowing your resources out there.
So one of the things we'll do for all of you is we'll collect a few names from
Yeah.
both Gillian and Hayley, and we'll pop them up on our website so that if you feel that you have a propensity towards postnatal depression, that you can perhaps get some help if you feel like you need some help.
Beautiful.
And I think that's going to be very important. That's probably a first step. But
Yes.
what are the things, so we can see the signs perhaps?
Yes, definitely.
But what else can we do as parents to prepare and put some strategies in place? What else can we do?
I think if you know that you have that increased risk, so if you do have pre-existing medical mental issues or or anxiety or depression, it's about being proactive, I think, during your pregnancy and acknowledging the fact that you may be at an increased risk. So start implementing strategies during your pregnancy rather than waiting for when it actually happens. So I think it's things like self-care, like that relaxation, being aware of your expectations. Like we mentioned, birth is very unpredictable and we don't have that crystal ball, we don't know how it's going to be. So being aware of possibly every scenario, so it's not a surprise if it happens.
Yes.
So it just does help to increase the coping mechanisms. Also things like acknowledging that the fact that having a baby does change things. So it does change, there might be changes in financial situations, it changes family dynamics with partners, they're going to be that sleep deprivation. So having a baby, there's going to be a lot of changes that occur with that. So I guess acknowledging that and preparing during pregnancy for that as well. Yes. And also taking that time, knowing that it's okay to ask for help and taking that time once you have a baby to do something for yourself, have that relaxation, a massage.
This is where I think a lot of women struggle.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's asking for help.
That's
Yeah,
right.
And I
definitely.
think we find it very difficult to ask for help because we believe that we should be able to do it all.
That's right.
Now, as we lead up into International Women's Day, we all know that there's no such thing as a superwoman, right? That we all have good days and bad days. And there's really, I think we talk about having balance in life, but it is very elusive, this concept of balance. And it's because I think as women, we feel that we should be able to manage on our own without asking for help. So we really do need this amazing support system around us who can help us. And if we don't have that support system, is it something that we need to perhaps try and put into place as a program or something? So, for example, having meals delivered.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Getting a cleaner. There's so many things that you need to prepare yourself postnatally for, and those sort of things, it's going to really help the mental status of the woman and help her with the bonding with that baby as well. So yes, a cleaner, getting meals delivered. contacting places like Beyond Blue or Panda, who's the Perinatal Anxiety and Depression in Australia, the association, you know, they've actually got amazing support systems. Also, when in classes, what we do, we generally, when we have a group of mummies in classes, we encourage play groups.
Okay.
So mothers supporting each other, and that is huge, a way to actually get mummies to know that what they're going through is totally normal. And a lot of people find that they're comparing themselves. Social media is a huge problem with, you know, I need to do it at this level because this is what this lady looks like in her beautiful photo, having this baby in her arms and, you know, looking absolutely beautiful. You know, we all need to be realistic as well, and know that social media can sometimes be a little bit skewy, if that's the word that we can use, and can put some blinkers on. You know, we need to open up to what is real for women, and this is where having people like you guys, having people evidence-based that actually know what's real, is really going to help mummies out there to know that, you know, that's not real, but this is.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is a real expectation.
Yes.
After you give birth, you're going to potentially feel like this.
That's
and it's
exactly
quite normal
right.
to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And it's quite normal to have a day where perhaps you're in your pajamas for the day.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So true. And that's why I think it's really important for mums to meet other mums, because quite often when they meet other mums, they what they realise is that they might be saying something and the mum's like, oh, another mum's like, oh, my baby does that too. Oh yeah, I feel like that too.
Yes.
So sometimes mums just need that reassurance to go, oh, it's okay.
It's okay.
normal. Other
Yeah.
mums are experiencing it, because quite often mums don't realise that, you know, all the other mums, majority of the other mums are going through the same thing. They just think of them. So when they think it's just them, then they start like putting themselves down, or they feel like they're not doing it right. But by just talking to other people, I actually have that reassurance to go, oh, I'm not alone. Other mums are going through the
That's right.
So often we're supported by wonderful friends and family. And the problem with our friends and family is sometimes they know that you do need help, but they don't know how to help them.
Yes.
So I was having a chat to one of my team who has never had children, and she asked me, her best friend has just had a baby and she's a little bit overwhelmed, what can she do?
Right.
And I said to her something simple like take a pot of food to her,
Yes.
or she has another child, so perhaps the child knows you well, take her for the afternoon to the park and give her some one-on-one time.
Beautiful.
Is there other things that people can do to support the people they love and to support the mama in their life that they love?
What you've just said is just perfect. You know, don't be judgmental. Don't throw opinions to people, because like we said, the hormones are all over the place. We need to respect the fact that it's their baby, it's their journey, and it's their decision at the end of the day. But you can certainly be the support factor by, you know, like you said, taking the toddler out to the park is beautiful. Coming to your friend's house and say, hey, how about you go and have a sleep, and I'll look after Buddy after you have a breastfeed, and we'll have a look, and you know, and that mum can actually have a sleep. You know, some mums are really troubled with, they feel like they're not getting those 8 hour sleeps anymore, and they can get a little bit anxious with that. A woman's body, when she's pregnant, these hormones actually allows mums to actually adapt quite well with less sleep, with the 3 hours, 4 hours. Haley's just had a baby, so you can tell us specifically. She can
But I think it comes down to like having that support, like having, you know, that supportive people around you. And that's what I found just after having a baby for 4 weeks ago. I had there was my husband's friends and work colleagues brought some meals around.
That's beautiful.
We just drop it off at the door, and they brought the kids and the other kids and some smoothies and things like that. So I think the big thing is that people quite often forget about the mum.
Yes.
That visitors are very eager to see the baby, but they forget about the mum. So I think it needs to be put back on the mum, because if the mum's looked after and has that self-care and is more relaxed, reduces anxiety and stress, she's going to feel like she's a better mum.
Yes.
And she's going to, feel like her coping mechanisms are a lot more effective as well. So
Wonderful.
I think,
Definitely.
And I love the point you've made, Dylan, about the fact that we don't necessarily need to have 8 hours of sleep.
Yes.
I think the anxiety that we can create for ourselves by just saying, I didn't have 8 hours, I only had 4. But if our bodies are naturally going to cope with that,
Yes.
then we can take the pressure off, because again, it's an expectation that's not real.
It's unrealistic. There
Absolutely.
are so many unrealistic expectations out there in the community, and we need to ensure that mums know where to get the right information, how to actually feel confident about themselves and the information that they're getting, making sure that they get evidence-based information, that they're not looking at someone's blog that is not qualified or something like that. It's so important that mums understand that.